wasn't there, but I heard about the Last Supper. In fact, Jesus told the disciples to repeat this event regularly to remember him. I picture what it would be like if I was there. It's not easy watching Jesus wash these feet. To see the hands of God massaging the toes of men is, well, it's not right. The disciples should be washing his feet. Nathaniel should be pouring the water. Andrew should carry the towel. But they didn't. No one does. Rather than serve, they were arguing over which was the greatest. What disappointment their words must have brought Jesus. I'm the number one apostle. No, I'm much more spiritual than you. You guys are crazy. I brought more people to hear Jesus than anyone. As they argue, the basin sits in the corner, untouched. The towel lies on the floor, unused. The servant's clothing hangs on the wall, unworn. Each disciple sees these things. Each disciple knows their purpose, but no one moves except Jesus. As they bicker, he stands. I remember the thought I had when I came into the fancy dinner where Jesus was with all the important people, but I couldn't help myself. He had set me free. He knew my past, and yet he loved me, and he let me know that God forgives. I had to wash his feet. But now he doesn't speak. He removes his robe and takes the serpent wrap off the wall. Taking the pitcher, he pours the water into the basin. He kneels before them with the basin and sponge and begins to wash. The towel that covers his waist is also the towel that dries their feet. It's not right. Isn't it enough that these hands will be pierced in the morning? Must they scrub grime tonight? And the disciples, do they deserve to have their feet washed? Their affections have waned. Their loyalties have wavered.
I too want to say to Jesus, Son, don't wash their feet. They don't deserve it. Look at John, Jesus. This is the same John who told you to destroy the city. The same John who demanded that you censor a Christ follower who wasn't in your group. Why are you washing his feet? And James, skip James. He wanted the seat of honor. He and his brother wanted special treatment. Don't give it to him. Give him the towel. Let him wash his own feet. Let him learn a lesson. And while you're at it, Jesus, you might as well skip Philip. He told you there wasn't enough food to feed the crowd. You tested him, he flunked. You gave him the chance, and he blew it. And Peter, sure, there are the feet that walked on water, but they're also the feet that thrashed about in the deep. Jesus, he didn't believe you. Sure, he confessed you as the Christ, but he's also the one who told you that you didn't have to die. He doesn't deserve to have his feet washed. None of them do. When you were about to be stoned in Nazareth, did they come to your defense? When you talked to the Pharisees and they took rocks to kill you, did they volunteer to take your place? You know what they've done, and what's more, you know what they're about to do. You can already hear them snoring in the garden. Oh, they'll stay awake. They'll say they'll stay awake, but they won't. You'll sweat blood. They'll saw logs. You can hear them sneaking away from the soldiers. They'll make promises tonight. They'll make tracks tomorrow. Look around at the table, Jesus. Out of the 12, how many will stand with you in Pilate's court? How many will share with you the Roman whip? And when you fall under the weight of the cross, which disciple will be strong and close enough to spring up to your side and help you carry your burden? None of them will. not one. A stranger will be called because no disciple will be near. Don't wash their feet, Jesus. Tell them to wash yours. That's what I want to say. Why? Because of the injustice. Because I don't want to see our King behaving as a servant. Well, God on his hands and knees, his hair hanging on his face. Do I object because I don't want to see God washing feet? Or do I object because I don't want to do the same? Oh yes, I washed Jesus' feet. He deserved it. These guys? Stop and think for a minute. Don't we have some people like the disciples in our world? Double-tongued promise makers, promise breakers, fair weather friends. What they said and what they do are two different things. Jesus says, guys, fill your shoes. My thoughts were, tell these guys to do their job. In fact, my logic would say, put up fist. Yet you say, fill the basin. My logic says, bloody his nose. You say, wash his feet. My logic says he doesn't deserve it. You say, you're right, but you don't either. And I stop and wonder how God can be so kind to me, but he is. He kneels before us, takes our feet in his hands, and he washes them. Please understand that in washing the disciples' feet, Jesus is washing ours. Then I thought about it. You and I are in this story. We are at the table. That's us being cleansed, not from our dirt, but from our sins. And the cleansing is not just a gesture, it's a necessity for me, for all of us. Listen to what Jesus said in John 13:8. If I don't wash your feet, you are not one of my people. Jesus did not say, if you don't wash your feet. Why not? Because we cannot cleanse our own filth. We cannot remove our own sin. Our feet must be in his hands. Don't miss the meaning here. To place our feet in the basin of Jesus is to place the filthiest parts of our life into his hands. In the ancient East, people's feet were caked with mud and dirt. The servant of the feast saw to it that the feet were clean. Jesus is assuming the role of the servant. He will wash the grimiest part of your life if you let him. The water of the servant comes only when we confess that we're dirty. Only when we confess that we are caked with filth, that we have walked forbidden trails and followed the wrong paths. Even now, I find myself with the tendency to be proud like Peter and resist. I'm not that dirty, Jesus. Just sprinkle a few drops on me and I'll be fine. What a lie. If we say we have no sin, we are fooling ourselves and the truth is not in us.
But even now, I know better. I will never be cleansed until I confess that I am dirty. I will never be pure until I admit that I am filthy. And I will never be able to wash the feet of those who have hurt until we all allow Jesus, the one we have hurt, to wash ours. Then I understood. All of those who spoke poorly of me, all of those who thought they were better than me, I am to wash their feet. Really? Jesus deserves me to wash his feet, not the disciples. Certainly not those who offer no hope, who treat me as if they were glad I was hopeless. Then I got it. The secret of washing feet. It is the secret of forgiveness. I will never forgive anyone more than God has already forgiven me. Only by letting him wash my feet can I have the strength to wash those of another. Finally, I noticed he finished their feet. That means he left no one out. Why is that important? Because that also means he washed the feet of Judas. Jesus washed the feet of his betrayer. He gave his traitor equal attention. In just a few hours, Judas's feet would guide the Roman guard to Jesus. But at this moment, they are caressed That's not to say it was easy for Jesus. That's not to say it's easy for you and me. That's to say that God will never call us to do what He hasn't already done.
One day when heaven is filled with His praises, one day when earth was as black as could be, Jesus came forth to be born of a virgin, dwelt among men, my example is He. Word became flesh and the light shined among us, His glory revealed. Living He loved me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day.
One day they led Him up Calvary's mountain. One day they nailed Him to die on a tree. Suffering anguish, despised and rejected, bearing my sin, my Redeemer is He.
Hands that healed nations stretched out on a tree and took the nails from me. Living He loved me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day.
One day the grave could conceal Him no longer. One day the stone rolled away from the door. Then He arose, over death He had conquered. Now He's ascended, my Lord evermore.
Death could not hold Him, the grave could not keep Him from rising again. Living He loved me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day, glorious day. One day the trump will resound for His coming. One day the heavens His glories will shine. Wonderful day, my beloved one, bring me. My Jesus Savior is mine. Living He loved me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day, glorious day, glorious.
we picture Jesus praying in the garden. So often through the life of Christ, we see Jesus spending time with the Father. The cry of every human heart is for companionship. God designed us to live in a relationship with each other, and it is natural to feel an ache in your soul when you're alone. God designed us for a relationship with Him. When He shared the Last Supper with the disciples, He was preparing them for His leaving and how they were to remember Him. Many of us today still struggle with loneliness and finding purpose. A.W. Tozer once said, "Most of the world's great souls have been lonely." Think of the godly people in the scriptures who felt alone, and consider the reasons for their loneliness. Job felt alone in his trouble. Joseph in his rejection from family. Elijah as a result of intense spiritual warfare. David as a result of his enemies' relentless attacks. Jeremiah because of his stand for the Lord. And Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when he needed his friends the most. Yes, even the Son of God knows what it's like to be lonely. Isn't that a comforting thought? Jesus walked this valley before us. He felt Satan's attack in the lonely wilderness of temptation. He felt the pain of isolation in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he felt the ultimate loneliness on the cross when he bore our sin. Because he has gone before us, he is our lifeline of hope. The author of the letter to the Hebrews assures us, "For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin. Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need." Jesus will meet you in your loneliness with a word of understanding and a heart of compassion. With Christ, you can be alone without feeling the sadness of loneliness. Loneliness is like an emotional desert where the landscape is barren and all you feel is the heat of the sun and an awful thirst for companionship. Now contrast that desert image with a garden image. Imagine yourself alone in a garden, listening to the soothing sounds of the birds and the relaxing rhythm of the wind in the trees. In the garden, you experience solitude, an entirely different sensation. Solitude brings refreshment, peace, and meaning. Jesus' body was about to be beaten and broken. He had just shared with his disciples the Last Supper. As he prayed, he asked them to join him in prayer, but they were too tired. Jesus' body was broken for us, and we remember that as we partake in this communion, where we thank God for his great sacrifice.
We could have the ushers come for our communion time. Communion is an important part of remembering what Christ has done for us. And here in just a moment, we will be distributing the elements, the bread that represents Christ's body. We're going to do it a little different than we do at times because we'll be distributing the cup at a little later part in the service. But I want us to focus on that very thought and that very issue of what Jesus' body being broken meant and how we can respond to it and recognize what God is doing. And so here in a moment we will be receiving and partaking of the bread. Amen.